All right, welcome. Today we're jumping into a really cool idea that kind of reframes how we think about success. It's not about hitting perfect shots, but about playing what we're calling the game of misses. Seriously, this is a powerful shift in perspective that might just change how you think about happiness. So let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's start with a question that, well, it can sting a little. If you're so smart, why aren't you happy? I mean, think about it. If we're educated, we're disciplined, we're reasonably successful, why does that feeling of happiness so often feel just completely out of reach? It kind of suggests that maybe, just maybe, we've been aiming all our skills at the wrong goal this whole time.
And right here, this is the core shift we absolutely need to make. You know, we tend to see happiness as this prize waiting for us at the top of the mountain of achievement. But what if it's more like going to the gym or eating right? A daily discipline, a practice that actually requires us to get comfortable with not being perfect.
And that brings us to our main idea today, our central metaphor, and it comes from a place you might not expect, the golf course.
This is a quote from Ben Hogan, one of the all-time greats in golf. And it's such a profound insight. He's not saying the goal is to never miss a shot. He's saying that's literally impossible. The real skill, the thing that actually leads to winning, is all about how you manage your misses.
And here's another legend, Jack Nicklaus, saying pretty much the same thing. Now, these aren't guys who were okay with being mediocre, right? No way. They were champions who understood that mastery isn't about getting rid of all your errors. It's about skillfully navigating them.
So let's just break this down. On the left, you've got this fragile mindset that's completely obsessed with perfection. Any little failure feels like a total catastrophe. But on the right, you've got the resilient mindset of mastery. Here, the goal isn't to be perfect, it's to miss well. It's to keep the ball in play, and to get that recovery is everything.
You know, this idea is way more ancient than you might think. The Hebrew word for sin, chata, doesn't originally mean what we think it does, like moral corruption. Its literal meaning is to miss the mark. You know, like an archer missing a target. So this frames life less like a battle between good and evil, and more like, well, a game of misses. The real question is, what do we do after we miss?
And really, there is no better example of this than King David. I mean, by any standard, his failures were catastrophic. And yet, he's remembered as a man after God's own heart. So why? It's because when he missed the mark, he didn't try to hide or make up excuses. He owned it, he grieved it, and he returned. The model for a well-lived life isn't about being perfect. It's all about honest, courageous recovery.
Okay, so if the goal is courageous recovery, how do we actually learn to do that? How do we get a truth like that deep into our bones? Well, the answer isn't through some complex philosophy. It's actually something much, much simpler. There's this wonderful little parable about a spiritual master whose disciples were getting, a little frustrated. They wanted these deep, abstract truths. They were asking for complicated lectures on the nature of reality.
But the master didn't give them any of that. Instead, he just kept telling them stories. See, he understood something really fundamental about how we learn. Abstract principles, they don't really change our behavior, but stories do.
And this was his explanation. The deepest truths aren't found in some giant floodlight of abstract theory. They're found by the light of a simple penny candle, a story. It might not light up the whole room, but it gives you just enough light to take that very next step.
And to see the power of that penny candle, just look at this single haunting sentence. It's from the author Donald Miller, and he's talking about the office behind his house where he works. I mean, that one line communicates more about the danger of misplaced priorities than an entire book on work-life balance ever could.
So the crucial point here is this. It doesn't matter how important your career is. It doesn't matter what you achieve. It doesn't change your most important job, which is being present for the people who depend on you. Some misses, especially in our relationships, they're not so easy to recover from. A childhood only happens once.
This all brings us to a really practical daily discipline. It's about shifting our focus away from achieving perfection and instead focusing on being prepared for an imperfect world.
So the sportscaster Bill Raftery, he's famous for his obsessive preparation before a game. He might only use, say, 10% of his research on the air, but that other 90%? It is not wasted. That is the foundation of his confidence. That's the unseen work that allows him to be present and ready for absolutely anything that happens.
This right here is one of the most liberating truths you can possibly embrace. We can't control the results. We can't control how other people are going to react. All we can control is our own effort and our own actions.
So focus on the process. Just taking the action, doing the prep, showing up, that is the win.
Okay, let's try to bring all these different threads together now. How do we actually turn these ideas into a real way of life?
Now, this is a challenging idea, but it's a mature one. Genuine goodness isn't the untested innocence of someone who's never been tempted. It's the strength of someone who has looked, honestly, at their own capacity for failure, for selfishness, and has chosen a better way. Just like King David, our strength is really forged in how we handle our weaknesses.
Cervantes wrote that, "We are the sons of our deeds," and that is ultimate accountability, isn't it? Our identity isn't defined by what we intend to do or what we believe. It's defined by our actions. What we do day after day in those small, unseen moments, that's what adds up to a life. So what does this look like in practice? Well, it's not some grand, complicated system. It's just a penny candle's worth of light. First, show up, especially for the people who need you. Second, miss well, because you're going to, so recover with courage. Third, forgive yourself and then actually move on. Fourth, stay present. Fifth, keep that sense of wonder alive. And finally, sixth, act without being so desperately attached to the outcome. Which brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Happiness isn't some prize you win. It's a skill you practice. It's the art of playing this whole game of misses with a bit of grace. So the only real question left is, how are you going to practice it today?